Welcome back to another episode of the Sport Life Balance podcast. I'm your host, Chris Scheel, and I'm excited to have you with us today. Today, we have a really cool conversation coming up. I had the honor to sit down with Adrian Belcourt, who is a former hockey player himself and football player, actually. Switched over from junior hockey to play university football. And he's actually coached for 27 years in the Sherwood Park area, been involved in many different areas of hockey. Specifically has 3 boys that have played up through the ranks of hockey, and we had just an amazing conversation today talking about the family's role and the family's impact in a child's sport journey. So I'm really excited for you to hear this conversation, and make sure to stick around towards the end. Adrian, I don't want to call him out, but he does get a bit emotional, and it's powerful. It really is. And just another indicator, another story about the power of sport. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks for listening.
3, 2, 1, yeah!
Like what I had written down for a title for today is the role of family on the sports journey. Like, I don't know if that title resonates with you, if you think something a bit different, but I just love the idea of like the impact that the whole family plays into one child's journey in sport.
Right. Well, first of all, Chris, thanks for having me on your show, and I'm excited to be here. You know what, I can speak. The good news is I can speak from my failures more than I can speak from my successes. And so when you sort of chatted with me about the sports life balance and what you're trying to accomplish in terms of providing information to families and individuals as they're carrying this load of trying to create a competitive athlete, I'm probably a resource that's worth listening to, because for as many things as I did right, I did a lot of things wrong, and I'm past my shame point of being embarrassed, so I'm happy to share. But first of all, there's lots of cliches and quotes and things out there, but it takes a community to raise a child, and it certainly. I look at the greatest athletes, and it's on the shoulders of great people that they are standing. And I believe that in the world of sport. I do not believe, especially in the ultra competitive sports that kids participate in, there's no way a kid can do it on his own. There's just no way. One of the things I would say is we want to believe in the mystical unicorn with sparkly dust, and this little person's born, and they're spectacular. They're savant-like in their skills. The science is overwhelming. That is really nonsense. It's a great story, and we love great stories. But the greater story is the hands together, bringing this child forward from young to middle age to adulthood, giving him an environment or her an environment where they can and are given permission and are expected to, and I use that word intentionally, expected to perform out of respect for the opportunity. And that's the real beautiful story, because that's more built on the reality of life than the mystical unicorn of Connor McDavid was spectacular when he was 5 years old, and he was just this amazing talent. And that's not quite how it works. Yeah. We want to believe it does, because it takes a lot of pressure off of ourselves, but it's not how that works. But totally. I'm happy to be here and love to chat.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love how you just dive right in, sharing your wisdom already, and also just the recognition of your failures. I think it's a very mature thing to recognize where things may have gone wrong, and I think speaking of cliches and whatnot, I think we've all heard it said we learn more from our failures than from our successes. So I'm happy that you're willing to share some of yours with us. So why don't you just take us back a bit and if you can summarize kind of your sports history, your sports background personally, and then as your kids came into the mix and kind of where you're at today.
Right. So the first thing I'll say is there's no question that I was hoping to provide an opportunity for my kids that I did not experience. So what does that mean? Come from a broken home, and there was in and out of hockey as I was growing up. Financially, it wasn't possible. Dad wasn't in the picture. Mom did what she could, but it was limited. And so there was played for a year or two, didn't play, and for a year or two. But in spite of that, I was really fortunate. I had some foundational skills as a young person that levered up. And so I ended up playing junior hockey in Saskatchewan, but it was short-lived. And it's a dark story to begin with, but I promise you it's part of the journey, and we all have it. I was away playing hockey in Saskatchewan, junior hockey, and I got a phone call from the coach. Or I got a phone call, the coach got a phone call, and my sister had passed away. She would have been 10. I didn't know which one at the time. And this was before cell phones and devices were so easy to communicate. In the end, that was the end of my hockey career. And the messaging, and I'll tie a bow around this later on when it comes to families in sport and parents' participation. I saw the struggle that my mom had to support me in my pursuits. And like any young, responsible adult at that time, sort of said, you know what, this is more work than it's worth. This feels a little self-indulgent. And so I stood down from my hockey pursuit at 17 years old, playing junior A in Saskatchewan. And I came home to it, ended up going to university, and through a series of crazy events, this is weird, I actually played CIS level football, which you're not going to probably talk to a lot of 2 levels athletes, but I played junior A hockey in Saskatchewan, and I played CIS football 3 years, have a national championship ring under the Coach Kennellan dynasty in the 1980s. And I think it's there where I really learned a ton about sports and the development of athletes. I watched Peter at the University of Calgary create an absolute dynasty, and it was factory driven. It wasn't an accident, and it wasn't hinged on one incredible talent levering up the rest. It was really, these are the pieces and components you need in order to produce positive outcomes. And he just built a factory. So it was the first time I'd ever seen positional coaches, situational coaches, and these were people who were respected in their own rights. A good example would be Greg Vavre was a great player. He's a quarterback coach in that world today. Here's a guy who could easily be a head coach of any program because of his resume and his background, but he was a position coach. And we had many like that. And so you had this surround yourself with great people kind of mindset. And I saw that, and it was my first inkling of what greatness could look like and how you create greatness. And it was fun to be a part of it. So, I played hockey, then I played football, then I graduated, and I took those skills into the corporate world. And it wasn't until my son kind of came to the age of 4, we got him on the ice. And my brother was a crazy passionate guy about hockey, and he would drag my son out when I wasn't available. And in the end, my son was an early adopter in hockey. And I use that term precisely in that in sports, young people are either early adopters or fit inside the middle of the normative curve, or they're late adopters. And we tend to want to forget about the middle or the late adopters, and we focus on the pixie dust unicorn ones. He was fortunate enough to be the unicorn ones who was always kind of at the top level. It was through him and then my following 2 sons that I ended up coaching a lot. So I've coached 27 hockey teams as head coach. I've pushed a lot of pylons for other coaches as well. I ran hockey camps in Sherwood Park, Alberta for 16 years, foundational skill development, position skill specific programs, small space programs, lots of fun, and really dug into what I would call the science and the technical of hockey, along with being a dad and being passionate about sports myself. So I'd like to think it was this really nice combination of a sort of an okay athlete who loves kids, loves to see kids succeed, and then a technical kind of a nerd-like approach to how do you do that, and what's the best way to give these kids. And you would say to folks, there's no question, and this was initially controversial, but when you think about it, it's perfect. I was absolutely there for the benefit of my son and sons, but I was absolutely committed to dragging along 20 or 30 athletes with them. So it wasn't going to be at their expense that my kids became better athletes and better people, but it was along with them, the collective of 15 or 20 or 25 kids would become better athletes and better people. And that really, for me, made me a bit of a popular coach because there was a lot of families that wanted that environment. We had a lot of success. The kids, to me, first of all signed up to play hockey the next year and were excited by it. And they grew and developed, and we won, but that was, as you would expect, that was the outcome of a great process. We disproportionately won a lot of hockey games, but it was never about the hockey game in terms of the score clock, because as my favorite man crush today would be Ted Lasso, and he says, I don't care about the wins and losses, and he is dead right. They take care of themselves. And if it was all about wins and losses, well, I think both you and I would agree there's days when we didn't deserve to win, but it was a queen of the pigs kind of scenario where we're all awful. We just happen to be less awful than everyone else. I hardly think that's a big W. And then there's other games where we were brilliant, but the pucks didn't go our way, or they were just a little bit better. And that to me was every bit as big a win, or even sometimes, and often the case, a much bigger win. Because now we've learned. We lost and we did a lot of the great things. So now we get to go back and examine what we did and how we can get a little bit better. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. There's a lot of nights in the rink. I spent most of my 27 weeks of hockey freezing and loved every minute of it. So that's where I'm at in terms of my sports background.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm really curious, like when your first son, he's turning 4, and that's the first time you're getting him on skates. Was that just a natural, or was that an intentional decision to drive him into hockey by you? And what did that look like for you? Was it just like, let's try hockey because I can still skate. I used to play hockey. Like, had you been involved in the sport in that interim phase?
Well, the sad reality is, I'd love to say absolutely I was, because that would hold me up in higher standard than I never left it. But that's not true. I absolutely did leave the game through my segue into the football CIS world, and then into the corporate world, and moving to Toronto and doing all that kind of stuff. But your kids, in many beautiful ways, bring you back to being kids. And so my kids absolutely did that for me. And I would say this for a certainty, and I said this at the time, if we lived in Southern California or San Diego or something like that, I might just as easily have put them into golf and taken the same passion towards it. But it was real easy for me, good, bad, or indifferent, for me to say, hey guys, let's go to the rink, let's go for a skate, let's go to the Millennium Place, to their little recreational skate, and have some fun and wheel around there. So that was easy. And then the second part of it, which was again easy for me, is that I was able to bring some value. I understood the game of hockey a little bit. I understood skating. It was my strength. I was a strong skater, and so I was able to bring some of that. But I was also super fortunate. I mean, I was fortunate enough that my oldest son, who today is still an absolutely beautiful skater, it was easy for him, and so it was easy for us. Like, it was just a natural little thing that happened. Now, ironically, that was not the case for my next two boys for different reasons, but it was easy to get into it because I was, first of all, passionate about being a part of my kids' lives. I used to say to my parents in the first coaching meeting, really honored to be here. I'm here because I don't have a farm. And they would kind of go, well, what does that mean? And I would say, well, in a farm environment, you learn so many things. And my God, if you want the ultimate working experience, then you need to have a dairy farm, because the cows need to be milked in the morning at 5 or 6. They need to be milked at night at 5 or 6. And they don't take weekends off. They don't take summers off. They don't take spring break off. They take no damn time off. And the discipline and the sacrifice and all the grit and perseverance, all the things that life requires of us as we move from young kids to middle-aged to adults and so on, those are all formed in those young people who are working the farm. Well, how do white-collar individuals or tradespeople or anywhere of us in between, how do we inculcate that into our kids
Right.
when we don't have a farm? Some are fortunate enough to have a business where, come on, after school, you're going to come and clean up the shop, or you're going to clean up the buses. And that's what we do. And on Saturdays, we're going to work here and there. But that's a very small percentage of folks. So the rest of us need to find ways, or at least that's how I thought of it, to allow our kids to grow, to struggle, to make sacrifices, to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, to be at the ice at 6, and realize that there's more to life than just serving myself, that there's something much bigger out there. And when you're a part of a team. And so the flip side of it was, I was always really, I became proud of the fact that every year was a brand new year. And that in that year, I would say to any one of my boys, do you want to play? Of course, I would love it if you did, and you're having great success and so on and so forth. But in the end, if you're not enjoying it, if you're not enjoying the journey, if you're not enjoying the pursuit, if you're not enjoying the sacrifice and the struggle, you do not have to play hockey. And I meant it. I did not want them to ever be a hostage to a sport that we fell into, and it was easy again to do it. But it was really important that it was a conscious discussion, that they understood that they were making a choice to do something that would require a lot of struggle and a lot of sacrifice. And that was always 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. You do not have to do this. This is your choice. And there was a sense of empowering for them, but also a sense that it was not my dream as much as it was. Every parent wants their kid to achieve at the highest level, and I'm no different. But it needed to be on their terms, and it needed to be with them. And there's lots of education and books out there. I think of Talent is Overrated, or Talent Code, Doyle, and these different authors, and they talk about the grit and the determination required. Inevitably, it starts with the parents. We'll circle back to parents in a bit, but the parents bring in a certain level of expectation and or passion, which then at a certain age transfers to the kids. Right. And I wanted my kids to really appreciate that this was their choice, that although there was always a comma, you do not have to play hockey. You will be doing something else that's going to demand a lot of time and energy from you and sacrifice. There's no free ride in this home, if you will. But you get to choose. You get to choose the grind, right? And that's kind of where we were at. So
yeah, that's so powerful. Like, I love the word empowerment, and I think of you're putting your kids in charge of their sport future, really, and their sport experience. You're giving them ownership of it, and as a parent that wants to see your kids succeed at the highest level, and especially like to succeed in a sport that you love and are passionate about, how did you balance that, passing on ownership to your kids? How did that conversation go when you were talking to them at the beginning of the year? Like, hey, you don't have to do this, even though deep down in your heart, like, you want to see your kid do this and do it at the level they can, but you're giving them a chance.
Right. So I think the first thing is you truly have to be in that moment of integrity where when you say to them, you do not have to, that they fully appreciate that they do not, that it has to be a very genuine conversation to say, you understand the sacrifices, you understand the commitment. There's going to be many hours and many days and late nights where you do not have to do this. That is ultimately your decision. And I'm giving you permission to say no. You need to know that. Now, once the decision's been made one way or another, now I become a parent again, and my job is to push and support. And the firm hand covered by the velvet glove kind of mentality, that discipline and hard work and attributes that will allow them to thrive and be successful in life, is my job to instill in them and to demand it of them. So that was kind of easy for me to make that transition. Okay, now that we've decided to do it, whatever the it was, in this case, hockey pursuit, what does that look like? How are we going to approach it? And, all those cliches come back again, is that, that's a blank slate, and you're the artist and you get to produce your picture. What is the quality of that picture? And so now Do we want to dabble and treat it recreationally, or do we want to try out, get a little more invested and treat it as a developmental experience, or do we want to invest even further and create a more elite experience? And I'm wired more for the elite type experience, so that was easy for me to kind of head down that path. And fortunately for my kids, they saw that, and I say this to parents all the time, kids are not stupid. We do not give them enough credit for their ability to see and hear and learn. So your behaviors and your words better be aligned, because they'll see the disconnect very quickly. And as a coach, that is absolutely a truth. And a teacher once said to me, you can push your kids really, really hard if they know that you care. Mm-hmm. And I felt that with my kids, and I felt that with my kids that I coach, that my practices, we hit the ice, we moved quickly, we moved hard. There was understanding of the expectations. There was high level of accountability, but it was all in an environment of, I'm here to make you better, and I care about you beyond, tying up your laces and once you're on the ice. And with that in mind, and I felt the kids experienced that we did achieve at a very high level, and kids did perform well. And it was so much fun to be a part of that, because it was a very genuine, I'm here to not let you off the hook. I'm here because I care. And you're, to use that expression, you're better than this. So let's see just how good you can become. Yeah. And with that in mind, kids thrive. They absolutely thrive. They just love becoming good at what they do. And they're not naive to sloughing off. They become proud of their choices and their behaviors and their outputs. And it was really a lot of fun for me. It was just sheer joy.
Yeah,
so I loved it.
I love it. I can see it. I can see it in your face still as you're, reminiscing about your coaching days and the impact of kids. And I totally hear that and echo that. I'm curious. So you got right into coaching, and that was a very natural thing, I'm assuming, for you. Like, your boys are in it. Why not coach it? But how did you also interact as a parent? Like, maybe even how did your wife get involved in sports as a more of a, I don't want to say a bystander parent and assume that she wasn't involved, but I'm assuming she wasn't coaching with you every week and to the same extent. So how did you balance that parent/coach involvement?
Right. So when you asked the first part of that question is really easy. Probably embarrassing was how I got into it. I remember being on the ice with a bunch of very high quality men in the Sherwood Park area, and the fun part was dads who love the game and love their kids tend to not want to sit in the stands. That doesn't mean that dads who love their kids are only on the ice. There's a lot of reasons why a dad wouldn't be able to, or a mom for that matter, be able to be on the ice with their kids. But you get the real passionate ones, often the case, on the ice with the kids. And so these would be a bunch of men who were fathers themselves, in some cases a first child or a second or a third. And they had played the sport at a high level. And so you would learn from them, right? If you're paying attention, you're going to learn parenting tips, tricks, and ideas from them. And I remember, kind of being on the ice, and I volunteered to coach. And of course, at that age, there's always a need for, many, one is good, many is better kind of idea. If we got a lot of hands, because these young kids, they can go off and wander, and the coach to player ratio needs to be high. And so we had great men on the ice. It didn't have to be men. At that time, the women were not playing a lot of hockey. I believe now, if I would coach, there's likely a parent who's going to be a mom who's played hockey and so on. But I was really fortunate to have some great dads with me along the way. And I remember, I'm just going to call him Darcy, because we'll just call him Darcy. And I came off the ice, and I remember saying something like to one of the kids, good job, with a term of endearment. Great job. Maybe I can't remember what I said. And he was like, he comes over to me and says, you can't call your son honey on the bread. on the bench, like, because I was just like being a dad while being a coach, and
Yeah.
it was embarrassing. And I thought, and then my kid, of course, was like, whatever, because dad calls me that all the time. And but it was a lovely learning, and I was fortunate enough to be beside some great men, again, coincidentally, who were as passionate about sport as I was, and in some ways, absolutely better than me in many ways. And so we kind of learned together, and it was a lot of fun. So that was the easy. That was easy for me to be out there. Again, love kids, love sport, love development, love growth. It's easy. The bigger challenge is for me at the time was aligning our family with the pursuit of hockey. And that's kind of that evenly yoked discussion to say, do you have both parents driving in the same direction? Inevitably, one of the parents is, not inevitably. You think of sort of the permutations of it all. You've got two parents who have no experience in pursuing sport at a high level, or you've got one who does and one who doesn't, or you have both who do. And the more yoked you are, whatever the case may be, neither of us really know what we're doing. We're going to hand that over, or both of us know what we're doing, and we're going to push and support. Is really a challenge. Is how do we together send the right consistent messages to our kids? And I have a different philosophy. Everybody talks about Mr. Gretzky, Walter, as being the kind of the driving force behind Wayne Gretzky. I actually don't agree. I think he was a bit window dressing. He loved to be at the games. My view is it was his mom who had the goalie pads on and was taking shots on Wayne in the family kitchen. And the messaging was from the mom, unwittingly and unstated, is, I'm giving you permission to go out there and be great, and I will support you. Now, she couldn't lace up the skates and be on the ice, but the messaging was pretty clear at home. This is a great thing to do, and I want you to go do it and make me proud, son, right? I think that evolutionary biology would suggest that moms play a much bigger role in the success of a young male athlete than society wants to suggest. And I would be, behind every great male athlete is probably a really strong mom who expected nothing less than greatness from her son and did it in an environment of high expectation and love and support. So I kind of look at the Gretzky family as Walter's got a lot of accolade, but I think it was really Mom Gretzky who created Wayne. Yeah. That's my view.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're totally right. Like, the impact, it doesn't have to be a direct impact. Like, there's more that you can do for your parents beyond just directly coaching them on their team. Like, if you don't have that high level sport experience in hockey, it's not natural for you to be a coach. It doesn't mean you can't support them on their journey. So what were some of the things that you did as a family to get on board, or to get on, like, this evenly yoked term that you used? Like, how did that look for you guys?
Yeah, and I think maybe that would be the fracture in the model, if you will, was I had all this sports experience and my wife at the time did not, and so it was really hard for her to understand and appreciate the level and the depth that I felt was needed in order to produce a high level athlete. And so therein lies the challenge for me, and the full disclosure of the mistakes and the so on. Was did we align? I mean, it's as I said earlier, kids are really smart and they see it, and so if they see inconsistency in terms of the messaging versus the behavior, that doesn't sit well with them. They need to see. It's like you go to work and you've got a boss, and you got your boss's boss, and if the boss and the boss are fractured and going in different directions, well, that kind of leaves you hesitating and not sure, emotionally, maybe even behaviorally. And I look at that with kids, that there's an argument that you get on the ice and there's a freedom to not care about what's going on there, but I think it's a little more holistic than that. That those young people need to see both parents aligned in terms of what does this look like and what energy we're going to put into it and how's the priority. I used to say to parents all the time, there, in that room, in that first meeting, I hadn't thought of this in a long time, but it's, there's going to be some families in here that grandma's going to have her 90th birthday next Saturday, and there's a hockey game. And there's some families that will take Friday off and be at grandma's birthday and make it a weekend event, and we won't see that young athlete or that player because the family, that's what they believe. There's going to be some families who are going to go to the hockey game as best they can, but go to grandma's as well. And then there's going to be some families who will go see grandma on Sunday after the hockey game, after we've trained. And none of those are wrong. It's just, is everybody on side with the directionally where we're going with this and what that looks like? And that's so important for the kids because they need to see the consistent message, whatever that message is. Grandma will be okay. We'll see her on Sunday. We're going to make a big deal of it. Or we're going to get to grandma's as soon as the game's over and we'll plow in the vehicle and go. Or Friday, Saturday, Sunday is grandma weekend and away we go. All are great answers. It's just, is there alignment? Do parents work together in a synchronous way to deliver that message of we're good, everything's good. There's no reason to be upset or panicked or concerned that we're missing this or we're missing that we're working our way through it. And so that to me is some of the nuances of being fully behind your young athlete, whatever that looks like. And I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's great. And as you're saying that, I'm just thinking back to your, the conversation you're having with your kids at the beginning of the hockey season. Like, do you want to do this? And I think that I'm not sure if this was true for your family, but I can see that being a family discussion. And if that, maybe that's the starting point of getting on the same page with the spouses, with the children as well. And at that point, we have the buy-in. Here's the direction. Here's what we are going to prioritize as a family. Here's how this season is going to look for us. And maybe that's something that families could start with as they enter into a new sports season. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And I think as we talk about this, there's no question I did not do that. So here's the learning from the failure, right? Was there alignment between dad and sons in pursuit of hockey? 100%. Yeah. Was there alignment in terms of mom and dad in what that looked like in pursuit of hockey? I don't think so. And in the end, that was the more important wheel that needed to be sound and running smoothly, versus, mom or dad aligned to the kid, but mom and dad not aligned, right? So it's the hub of the wheel. If you're a person of faith, would be your vision of God or the higher power, whatever that may be. Yeah. And then the next ring outside of that would be the relationship. So let's say in a non-Christian family, the hub is the mom and the dad. They need to be tight. That environment needs to be really smooth. Yeah. And then of course the spokes from that hub move out nicely and everything's efficient and it works. But when that hub isn't right, then the other spokes don't quite work as well. And so there's a sense of conflict or a sense of friction or a sense of discord or a sense of we're being pulled in two different directions. And for a young person, in order to be quite, for lack of a better term, narcissistic, because it is a tremendously, if you think of it, wow, we are going to stop our lives in many ways to pursue a dream for this 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old. All the money the family's going to pull together is going to go into this little person. All the time is going to go into this little person. All the energy is going to go into this person. Pretty hard not to imagine this little person could get this little God complex to say, hey, the world revolves around me, right? That's so easy to do. And yet, in absence of that, how do you send the messaging? That's the beautiful science of, you are part of this family and you're an important part and we're going to support the heck out of you. But, there's something bigger here for you. So be ultra grateful, ultra aware that their sacrifices are being made on your behalf, and so on and so forth. And you see that with certain athletes when they go up for their Hall of Fame awards or their Player of the Year awards or whatever, and they break down and cry because they look back at what the parents did for them. And to me, that's just a spectacular moment for the rest of the world to see that sense of, I'm so grateful for what you did for me.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
That's very
so
powerful.
there it is. I would say that I did not nail that, Chris. Yeah. I would circle back and say, yep, that was probably where we didn't quite synchronize the way we could have.
Yeah.
But having said that, there's the learning for the audience is make sure mom and dad are on the same page, or the caregiving support group, whatever that looks like. Yeah. And the bigger the care group, the better the support. I love to see, and I could name athletes who, again, you look at the profile of a typical athlete, it's not mom in the stands watching the hockey or the skiing or the this or the that. And it's not dad, it's mom and dad. And then you notice the next generation of grandparents. Yep. And now you've got, in that beautiful world of two sets of grandparents and parents all together. And the message is pretty clear to that person. We support you. There's no hurdles or gates that we won't try to tear down for you. And that little person goes to bed at night in peace and gets up in the morning in peace and goes and pursues his dream in peace. And that's the Zen thing that I see. And so the more we as individuals can come together in support of the pursuit, the more at peace that athlete can go out there and just have a good time and then play, right? Because it's fun then. It's not, oh my gosh, my parents are mortgaging the house, or my mom hates this and my dad loves it, or my dad hates it. There's no friction there. It's all this like, look at this. We're just enjoying the experience all together. I think that's perfect.
Yeah, that's such a powerful visual of the athlete walking up to receive the award and breaking down, and even just I'm picturing like mom and dad and two sets of grandparents in the stands watching their kids play whatever it is, hockey, ringette, gymnastics, whatever. The support that those children feel in that moment. Not to say that it only can come from sport, but what a powerful opportunity that sport provides for those kids to feel the impact, feel the support of their family.
It is, I think, widely misunderstood how powerful that is. And I would suggest to you probably the single biggest contribution that a set of parents can make to their children is to be good to each other, right? And this young person seeing that, and then both parents pushing the heck out of that kid in a loving environment of, do you realize how great you can be with all this effort? And even if it doesn't work out, all of the things you're going to learn about yourself and about pursuit of some important piece, and the growth that you'll have as an individual. Yeah. So 100%.
I want to put you on the spot. With a question, Adrian. So your kids are, nearing, winding down their sports careers. Say, I believe they're still all of them are still active in sports in some capacity right now.
Yes. Yes and no.
Okay.
Actually, one is not.
Okay. So, what I want to put you on the spot and just ask you, like, what is the one thing you want to say to them as you reflect back on their sports journey, and what you hope they got out of sports?
Right. That's actually really easy for me. And when you said it, the first thing that popped in my head is the thing that's is there and sustains me. Thank you. Right. Probably going to break down a little bit here, because my oldest son is 22 and he's going into his second year of ACAC hockey. He's transferring to the U of A. So there's a real chance after this season is over, there in the finals coming up right away, that his hockey career is over at a competitive level. He is thinking about whether he wants to go play at the U of A and whether they will, give him that opportunity and so on and so forth. But in the last little while, and I've known this for a long time, but in the last little while, there's that real hard reality of this could be the end of the journey in terms of that pursuit. Now, in context for the listening audience, this is a kid who played Team Brick at 10 years old who played U16 for Team Alberta, who 16 years old played in the Western Hockey League, captain, all this stuff in junior hockey, scholarships, all that stuff. And the thing that I would say to him is thank you. Just thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was so lucky to be a part of it.
Yeah.
I was so lucky that he let me be a part of it. Yeah. I was so lucky to learn so much through him. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrian, for sharing that. I know that the parents listening to this, as a parent myself, I'm touched, I'm moved, and again, talk about the power of sport that it has on our kids and on us. And yeah, I just thank you for going there with us.
It's an easy one. And then you asked me what. So, that's the emotional side for me, that it was a beautiful gift. It really was. And it continues to be. But underneath that, what was the gift? The gift was the relationship that I was able to forge with him and my other sons, whether it was taking my one son from Sherwood Park to Camrose for practice 5 out of 6 nights in a week. And if you know the geography, that's about 55 minutes door to door. So now we're in a car for 2 hours on a weeknight, and then we're watching him practice for 90 minutes, and then we're coming home and listening. I can still listen to the music we listen to. And when we listen to that music together, this is my middle son, we will remember the same things, and the conversations that we had and the relationships that we built they become what it is about. The hockey is wonderful, and boy, who doesn't love to see their kids succeed and so on. But it's the relationships that you build with your children that lasts into the next part of their life and the next part of their life. And that's the richness of sport for me, is being a part of it and having that privilege. I struggle to understand parents who race to the front of the building, open the door, the kid pops out, parents drive away and don't come back. And I fully respect that there are many families who have no options, that's just how it is. Maybe there's too many kids, not enough van, or maybe there's so many other conflicting constraints. But where possible, as parents, try to stay as close to them as you can, because that is really the richness of the experience. The sport will teach them so much, but it's the pursuit that brings the family together and creates those ties that bind, right? So I look at my sons and what have they learned? Well, they don't think much of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning when they have to. It's just part of the deal, right? And whether it's for school purposes or hockey purposes or a golf tournament purpose or a school purpose, that's nothing that they look at and go, okay, well, that's weird. They would look at it and say, well, we've done this before. It's no big deal, right? It's just what you have to do sometimes. And then the commitment to follow through and to be proud of yourself. There are so many times when that young person has every right to quit because the system isn't fair. The cards are stacked against you. The politics is the thing, all the things that you cannot control.
Yep. And
the easy answer is to quit. But then, I think of a Gladiator and Russell Crowe's, what you do now will live into eternity. And that cuts both ways. That if you honor yourself with decisions of conviction and determination and perseverance, that honors you. It's a cookie in your cookie bag as you move through your life. Remember when I could have quit, but I didn't.
Yep.
Conversely, the edge of that sword is the other way, where I planted some seeds of my determination and commitment, and I did quit. And it's tough to unwind those things when you do, right? I mean, and they don't become scars for life, but they certainly are there as a as a cautionary note. So for me, it's I get complimented often about the maturity of my sons, and I'm proud of it because through these pursuits, they grew up in many ways, and that's worth everything.
Yeah, so powerful. I know you've given us tremendous insights, advice, wisdom, for parents, at any stage in the sports journey with their kids. Any last message that you would like to say to, maybe a parent closer to my situation where, kids are just starting into sports maybe, or, something like that?
Right. There's a few things that come to mind. Number one, be in the moment. Wherever you are, be there. Don't wish you were pursuing, but while you're pursuing, not really pursue with everything you have. And when it's recreational and fun, then go out there and just have the most fun, laugh and be childlike and have the best time. And if you can do both, in the context of hockey, if you can go out to the ODR in the middle of the winter and get the old man out there and perform some filthy dangles on your dad or your mom and giggle and laugh about it. But also treat this is a big thing for me and my family, is treat the opportunity with the respect that it deserves, whatever that opportunity is. Don't ever look back and say, wow, I cut a corner. I shortchanged whomever was paying the bill, whether that's me personally or somebody else. Go out there and honor yourself, and through that, honor the experience and everybody involved in it. So I would say to parents, be conscious, be very mindful that it is not fair. The game is stacked against you, and know that going in, so that when the hardship of the unfairness starts to land in your front door, because it will, that you are prepared to realize that it's now an opportunity to learn about how to control what only you can control, and then have as much fun as you can. Giggle, laugh, cry, hold hands, sing songs, whatever you got to do, but make it as fun as you can, and joyful in the pursuit, right? When something funny happens, in spite of the best effort and the hardest of work, laugh, because it's way better than crying.
Yeah, that's
and keep going.
Yeah,
keep going.
Awesome. That's so great. Thank you so much, Adrian. This was a wonderful, just a delightful conversation. And again, appreciate your insights and sharing your vulnerabilities and some of your failures with us as well. It's truly grateful for you.
You're well. First, thank you for the opportunity you made me cry. So thanks a lot. My wife will laugh and say, "Well, that's normal. Nothing new there." And my kids will go, "Well, there's Dad," whatever. But I am so grateful for the opportunities I've had, and sport has been particularly significant for us in our lives. And if you ever need to have more conversation about other aspects of sport and development and pursuit of greatness, by all means,
I think we'll be back here. I think we'll be back here. It's natural conversation. So that sounds great. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Sport Life Balance podcast. We hope this episode inspired and encouraged you as you navigate the demands of sport and life. Be sure to subscribe anywhere you listen and leave us a review. We would greatly appreciate it. You can also find us and follow along on Instagram at the Sport Life Balance. Until next time, wishing you all the best in your sports journey.